Welcome back to the Women of Wrestling podcast here at ringbellsonline.com, episode 40. Irish Allen here, along with Freaky Lee Burton, and they say life begins at 40.
Well, I'd say the last 39 podcasts have had a fair bit of life in them anyway.
This is true, but
this one is something special. This is something new for us, which I guess is kind of what being in your 40s is all about.
Is it? I haven't quite got
so
there
I'm told. I have some 40-year-old friends.
Okay, I haven't got there yet, but...
The point is that this is the first time we've ever done a back-to-back podcast with the same guest. I mean, we've had return guests before. We've had Alison Danger come back. We've had Serena Deeb come back. But it's been a period of time that has passed in between them. This one, the period of time is a week.
Yes. But in that week, our guest has gone and seen herself on the big screen at an LA premiere, and she's got a lot more to talk about. We are, of course, talking about the former Ivory, the former Tina Ferrari. We're talking about Lisa Moretti.
So a little bit of clarification, though. On the last podcast, which is still available for download on the website and also on iTunes, we talked with Lisa about Glow. We talked to her about the documentary. We talked to her about her getting started in Glow and Tina Ferrari and that kind of thing. This is post-Glow. Yes. For the most part. We're talking a bit about the documentary to start off with because she's been to see it and we'll be discussing what she thought of it. But after that, this is pretty much just about her time as Ivory in the WWF and WWE. Yes,
this is the big time version. Much like when Chris Jericho wrote his first book, and his first book was everything up until he debuted in WWE, and then the second book was WWE. This is exactly the same format we're ripping off here.
Yeah.
We're sorry, Chris.
Yeah, very sorry, Chris.
Call it a tribute.
Don't sue us.
But no, seriously, and for those of you who've already checked out the links on the front page as well, we'll put the links in the show notes for this as well. There are further screenings of the documentary in both New York and London coming up within the next month or so.
If you're in London, by the way, you might be interested to know about this one. Because we just double-checked it. It's on June the 5th, which, if you're interested, is a bank holiday. It's the Diamond Jubilee. So you do have a day off, which means you don't have to take a day off work. You have no excuse for not being there.
A fair point.
In fact, anybody who's in Europe who's listening to this, you have no excuse for not being there.
You can buy your tickets right now. Get them bought immediately.
And they're not expensive either. So you're getting quite a lot of fun for quite a little amount of money.
Yes. Well, it's about that time. We need to get a movie star on the show.
We just need to have one floating around. We
do, actually. It's just as well. Let's get to part 2 of Lisa Moretti. Okay, we are back on the Women of Wrestling podcast with our guest for the second week in a row. It brings me great pleasure to welcome our roving reporter, Lisa Moretti, back to the show. Lisa, hello again.
Hello, Stu and Lee. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing with you both and all the listeners what a great night it was in Los Angeles, California, where we had the screening of Glow, the movie. It was super.
Well, this was it. This was the first time that you got to see the final product, wasn't it?
Yes, and I was so excited to see everybody and to, have my dad come to my old neighborhood, Los Feliz, California, and the night, just even without even seeing the film, was going to be fabulous. But then you sit down and the lights go down and here it comes, and I was so happy with it. It was such a good film.
Thank goodness.
Ashley leaned over to me before it started. She said, "It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It tells a great story." And I'm like, oh, I can't wait. And it does. They did such a good job telling the story.
I'm so pleased you liked it, because this would have been a terrible comeback after a week if you come back and said that, you know what, it actually was no good. So yeah, I'm glad about that. I don't really want to. I don't want you to tell us too much about it, because I want people to go and see it when it comes to their city and when they get an opportunity to see it. But I mean, as far as you were concerned, was everything covered to your satisfaction? Was there anything that you thought was missed out, or maybe not given enough prominence?
I think it was perfect. It was. I actually learned an awful lot about the fall of Glow, because I, of course, was like so many of us in the first 2 seasons. We kind of disbanded. Some went on to do POW with David McLean, and some decided that's enough for me, I'm done. And there was a changing of the guard, and Glow 3 and 4, the 3rd and 4th season, continued on, with a little bit of a different twist, with a different announcer, same, and some new faces, some new girls. And I never knew what happened. Why did it end when it ended? And I found out in the film. And also got to know and meet and see the performances and in their up-to-date now interviews that were covered in the film. Get to know about the other girls and who they are and what they experienced. So it was very fulfilling for me. It was, I guess, kind of brought some closure to that whole chapter in my life in watching the film.
With that, does the film sort of capture the essence of what Glow was all about? Because it must be quite difficult to make that sort of transcend maybe after all this time. Does it really capture the essence of Glow?
It does. They picked some fabulous music for the action, and it really did. It was this lively flash of color. They had plenty of the footage, the in-ring footage, and the little skit. You got to see a whole bunch of, all those nutty matches we had that were so politically incorrect with the swastikas and the American flag. We had a, black girl with, another tag team with little bags over their faces that, simulated Ku Klux Klan, smashing a watermelon over her head. And, all of these things that were really hot buttons across the nation as far as our culture. And we emulated that in these silly matches. So it was powerful stuff in a slapstick way, and it was all there in the film.
Of the people who were the season 3 and 4 girls, and the people that you didn't know particularly well before you've got together again for these reunions, who stood out for you?
Who stood out was Godiva.
Okay.
I never actually got to watch a whole lot of Glow 3 and 4 seasons. But I remember, of course, Godiva, because she was tall and blonde, and she rode in on a white horse. How great is that, to come into the wrestling ring on a white horse? So
that is kind of memorable.
It turns out that in her interview, she was dark-haired and had an American accent, not a British accent. And she decided that for her character, she would have an accent. And so she took that on as an actress. And it was very convincing. Well, to me anyway. Maybe you can see some of the differences of her accent because you are British. But I thought she pulled that off really well. And it really did add to her character. So she really stood out for me as being, in person, a really lovely lady. And as a really talented actress to bring that to the table for Glow.
One of the lovely things that I did notice, just from like you said, these were some people who you maybe hadn't met before, and some people who you didn't really know their stories about as well, was just the way that you all interacted. I've seen some of the photos from that screening, and you all look like you're all kindred spirits to a certain extent.
Yeah, well, it's that sisterhood that we talked about on our first podcast, that we have, something that's a project in common. We have a happy time in our lives, and also, a little bit tumultuous for some of the ladies that incurred injury. That was, of course, not a fun thing for them. But mostly it was a happy experience, and we certainly were family because we lived together. The 3 and 4 season, it turns out, I never even knew, but they moved them off of the Las Vegas Strip and into housing. So the good girls all lived together and the bad girls all lived together. And they had a curfew, and what a great twist to add to the show. So they had a really, it was fun to learn all about that. But of course, you get to be very close because you live together. And even just those of us who shot different seasons, we still had Glow the brand in common. And it was a neat experience for all of us.
So who all was actually there at the premiere for LA? Who all turned up representing Glow?
Well, boy, a lot of us. When we went up for the Q&A afterwards with the writer and director and the owner of the film festival, Jason Connolly, we filled the stage from side to side, and I think there was, a couple rows of us. We were all smashed in there. There was plenty of girls. It was wonderful. It really made for some good Q&A also. I hope that they put that on the DVD as an extra.
I have a question for you just following up from that. We're in the interviewing business. What was the best Q&A? What was the best question that was asked?
Let's see. I think the best question had to do with Matt Cimber. And instead of the ladies answering the question, Matt Cimber actually came up to the stage because he did not join us at the end of the film. He was there. And he actually decided to come up and answer the question himself. So he started to talk, and I think it was really fulfilling for the audience. And, of course, the people behind the cameras getting all the footage, because everybody wanted to hear from Matt Cimber because he was such an integral part of some of our comments in the film. I was like thinking, while we were watching the film, I knew he was sitting in the back row because they said hello to him. And then you're watching all the girls say these things about him. And I'm thinking, what does it feel like to sit in the audience and be the subject of all these remarks? But they're true, so he knows who he is. You bring it upon yourself. And, of course, the other flip side is that he's so creative. The show would never have been a success without his input and his guidance. He just had a funny way of spurring the moment, spurring, as he says, great performances from us. He knows how to push our buttons, I guess. Anyway, so he talked, and it was good stuff. I mean, kind of, he went on about a few different topics. But all of it was really good. So you'll have to, hopefully that'll make it to a DVD extra so that the fans and anyone interested can see it for themselves.
I'll tell you one thing I did notice. Hollywood's dress.
Oh, yeah, so did my dad. My 76-year-old dad noticed it, too.
Now, that was a dress.
Yeah, and my boyfriend took several pictures of, the front, the side, and the back side. And, he was able to tell me exactly what her thong print had on it. And, of course, he said, it's not me, it was your dad. He's the one that noticed. But Hollywood has the body for it. She can bring it. So I'm glad she did.
That's true. She certainly can.
She really is Hollywood.
Yeah, she is Hollywood. I'm just so glad that she was able to make it because I know she's moving out of the state of California. And I think from Vegas at the Cauliflower Alley Club meeting, she was telling me that she's, packing it up and moving to Tennessee, I believe. And I was really worried that she wouldn't make the screening, but she was there. So a lot of effort on all the girls' parts to show up and be there and, join in the festivities. And I think that, quite frankly, is what's going to really help promote this film. And I hope that I know that the film festival is now working to launch it into distribution so that more people can see it in theaters across the nation and around the world. So that's what the next step is to get this thing, the rights sold somewhere so that we can launch it out into the world and get some momentum behind Glow, the movie.
All I'm thinking now is if Hollywood moves out of California and moves to Tennessee, does she have to change her name to Memphis?
Yeah, Memphis, and then gain a lot of weight, right? Start wearing cowboy boots.
Hi, everyone listening in Tennessee.
Even if she wears cowboy boots, I sure hope she still wears crochet dresses.
That'd be great.
Oh.
So
I saw some pictures on Facebook that had some nice shots of the girls, individual shots of in the theater, and the thing that came to my mind was how pretty everybody is. They just have blossomed into such beautiful women. And And, they really know how to have style and class, and it was really nice to see. What great. I just really feel, I kept saying the whole night, wow, it seems like some life has been breathed into this project, and it's like the creature is rising up out of a long slumber. So I have a feeling that the creature is just starting to wake up and stretch its limbs, and I think we're going to see some big things happen around the Glow brand.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because, you sort of said that the film kind of brought you a little bit of closure, and you had your reunions and your cauliflower alleys, and now the premiere of the movie. I was kind of wondering, does this feel like a big ending? But you're saying no?
No, but I think that the Glow movie takes Glow to the next level that it is expected to go in. A broader reach. I think the Glow on television was nice, but it's really great to bring it now to a new platform of film. So I know a couple of the girls are writing books. Hollywood is writing her book, she mentioned during the Q&A. And Queenie has a book that's done and titled, I don't remember the title, but it's ready to launch. So that'll be also a nice thing to add to this whole mix. Some real life accounts of the people that were involved. And I don't know, hopefully we'll get some, I've got all the POW footage too. So we're kind of secretly talking about what should we do with that. The film people are interested in maybe bringing that about in some way or fashion. And that'll give some light to more of the 80s. I know you love the 80s, people. Well, the 80s are just in a class of their own. So it's fun to get a retrospective look at the 80s. It's just perfect. It's perfect to poke fun at. So we have all the footage that would then highlight and give some spotlight to Bambi and Peggy Lee Leather and all the ladies. Some of them are still wrestling in the independent circuit. So it would be fun to see what they've been doing with their lives, how it all panned out for them. Whole other crew.
So potential sequel then, sort of, to a certain extent.
Yeah, or just more attention to the ladies wrestling movement of the 80s, because there was definitely, if you look at the timeline of women in the ring, and you start with Mae and Moolah, Penny Banner, those ladies, and then you have the Lipstick and Dynamite documentary that profiles all of that. Now you've got another documentary, Glow, which brings about this big new movement in the 80s where so many ladies wrestling shows came about. And there were several. There was LPWA, and there was WOW for a little tiny bit of time, and there was POW. So, and then now fast forward, 20 some years later, and we've got kind of a resurgence of some women's leagues that have been shown that they have some staying power, like Shimmer. What are some of the others, guys?
There's WSU in the Northeast. There's Femme Fatale up in Canada. Over here in the UK, we've got Pro Wrestling Eve and WAWW. There's loads of promotions in Japan. They're sprouting up all over the place. Yeah. And they've been around for a while, so it's not like they're just, 2 years old. No, absolutely. So it's a really, when you look at the whole timeline of women in the ring, it's really evolved, and Glow and POW, that mid-'80s time was a real turning point for the women.
Well, you mentioned about evolution, and this is kind of why we wanted to speak to you as well for a second podcast, because in the first one we were concentrating a lot on Glow and Tina Ferrari. From there, your career, it did evolve as well, and it grew and grew and grew, and that's kind of why we wanted to speak to you here as well, because there's a huge second chapter of your wrestling career which we just love to address, and I guess it all centres around you signing on with the WWF.
Yeah, that was big. That brought me to the big leagues and, put me in a position to be able to talk about ladies wrestling and have, at least you two want to hear about it.
Oh, there's lots more. But the thing that we wanted to ask, though, is because there was that gap between you at LPWA and then you did a little bit in the 90s as well. But then 1999, the WWF came calling, or how did that all come about? Because were you still involved in wrestling very much by that point?
No, I pretty much put it on the back burner. It was always something that I would say yes to when I got a phone call that sounded like a project or a promotion that might be promising. But there were so many people floundering with their projects that they would, call you up and tell you how great it is. And that's still how it is today. People call up and they tell you how, important they are and how trustworthy they are and that this promotion's going to be the one and can I sign you on? So I just learned to say, yeah, sure, get it up and running and I'll take a look at it, or maybe I'll show up. So you say yes, 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 but hardly anything ever comes through. So it falls apart in the making. Anyway, I started to focus on other things, which none of it was really a focus. It was kind of staying alive and keeping your bills paid while you spend time in Los Angeles hoping for an audition to get a job on something, commercial-oriented or television-oriented or anything. So it was a little bit of a floundering time, but I also had some really, I never spent much time with jobs I didn't enjoy. So I had the makeup artistry that I really enjoyed. I worked for Revlon, which was my serious job that I really enjoyed. I was a national trainer for Revlon. So every 6 months I'd get a calendar and I would go travel around and teach these schools to the women who sold the products in department stores. And we'd, teach the new products and the how-tos, and it was basically an avenue for me to perform again as a teacher. But it was elegant and it was pretty and the women were fun and I could make the classes my own, so we had a lot of fun. And I really, again, enjoyed being around the people. So that was a really good gig and a good paying gig, and the people at Revlon as a corporation were so professional and great to learn from. Gloria Flanz is somebody that is real important to me in my life. She's just a self-made businesswoman, was always beautiful and just graceful and a super great business influence. And it's so funny because her and our director of Glow, Matt Simber, are good friends. Isn't that something?
Small world.
And I told Matt, so in these years that have gone by, Gloria Flanz always calls my mother, Mary, and me on our birthdays. And my mom was a national trainer as well, before my time. And so we've all stayed in touch, just on once a year phone call kind of thing. And Matt Simber, I bump into him here and there. And we always have that little weird tie about, and at the film premiere, Matt Simber told me that oddly enough, he said, me and Gloria almost got married. And I was like, oh gosh, good thing. I think you guys are better separate than together. I don't know if he was lying, fibbing, or what, but I can't imagine that combination. Anyway, so I had lots of different jobs, and one of them, as Nick Foley tells about in his first book, that I started out by answering a call to be a Godfather Ho.
Oh, yes.
In Phoenix, Arizona. So that's what the call was. It came to the West Coast because they didn't want to really spend the money to fly somebody cross country to do this little gig for one of the Raw performances. So somehow, I guess Jimmy Cornette was calling around to try to find names, and Howard Brody, who I worked with on his project WOW back in the mid-'80s, he referred Jimmy Cornette to me. So that's how I got the call, and I was on my way to do Revlon training in San Francisco the very next day. So Monday Night Raw wrapped up, and I wrapped myself in a long kind of trench coat over my Ho outfit, boobs a-bouncing, ran to the last flight out of Phoenix to make that flight to San Francisco. I made it on time, but my luggage didn't. So I wound up in a hotel in my Ho outfit.
Oh, no.
Spending the night wondering if my professional clothes would arrive in time to teach my class.
Did they arrive?
They did.
Oh.
So I went back to the airport in my trash clothes, and I loaded all my, I came to the Phoenix show with my all my Revlon stuff, my huge portfolio. Remember those hard case portfolios?
Mm-hmm.
But all of my, products, because I had to set up this classroom environment, for kind of like a presentation. So I had product. I had this big trunk full of product, Revlon product, and I had all my Cindy Crawford pictures and all that stuff that you decorate the room with. So when Brawler and Harvey picked me up in the van at the airport in Phoenix, they were like, "Oh my God, I've never seen anybody travel with this much shit." I said, "Well, I have another job. I'm going on my way to my other job." So I was kind of unusual from the get-go. But I made it, and I changed my clothes out of my hoe clothes into my professional attire in a Staples. That's an office supply place where I was making copies for my classroom, and then I darted off to my class, and it came off without a hitch. Because I'm just that adaptable, you see. Hoe by night, teacher by day. So then the next day, I got a phone call from JR while on my little cell phone, and at lunch break in my classroom setting, I went to go answer the calls and talk to him on the phone, and he said, "Hey, we want to present you to Vince McMahon. You did a good job, and when you get home, put a little tape together or something so we can send it to him and get you a deal if you're interested." I said, "Well, how does it work?" And he said, "Well, the girls are doing pretty good these days. You probably make 6 figures." And I said, "Okay, I'll be getting that tape to you right away." So that's all I needed to hear. So I went back and I took all that POW footage and any kind of stuff I had on VHS back then.
Indeed.
And I went to a studio and we put together something that looked really aggressive, tried to make it edgy for that promotion because I knew WWE was edgy. And we sent it off, and I got a call, and they shipped me off and named me Ivory. And that's how it all started.
So it all came from one night, and you parlayed that into a whole second half of your career.
Yeah. But I was a good hoe. I don't think
clearly.
It wasn't just luck. It was, I showed up, I assessed the situation, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, why are you going to go there and say, "Gee, I should have done this"? So I told the other hoes that were not wrestlers, they just were the ones picked to be pretty, and I said, "Come on, man." I gave them backstory. I said, "We are out with the Godfather. He is our lifeline to coke and booze and clothing and fun. He puts a roof over our head, and we adore this man. So let's let the guy feel it. Let's tell the fans who he is to us. And we, of course, are freaks, so we like each other too." That's what I told the girls. So if you see the picture in Mick Foley's book, we're all hanging all over each other, the girls, like we love each other. So, yeah, we put on a good show.
You had hoe psychology.
Hoe psychology. I brought hoe psychology that night. That's probably what got me the job.
Well, once you did get the job, what happened? It seemed to be as far as your sort of body of work just sort of skyrocketed very quickly. Because we looked at some of the dates of things that you did, and you did your debut on February 13th, 1999. 2 days later, you debuted. You had a women's title match within a month of debuting. Within 6 weeks, you were at WrestleMania. I mean, when you signed on for it, did you think, this is what I think is going to happen, or did you expect it to be a little bit more of a steady pace?
I didn't know what to expect, but I think the way that Vince McMahon works and the WWF and E, they throw you in. They want to see what you got, so they throw you in fast and furious, and that's just my cup of tea. I love that. I love that about them. I think they can cut to the chase a lot sooner, whether they're going to bank on a person as a character in their show by throwing them in the mix and seeing what this person can bring or make out of it. Right. So it's our job as a talent to always give your bosses, and this would be my advice to anybody in the ring, whether they're female or male, is every time you go out to the ring, it's an audition. And if you can give them, the bosses, the people judging you, and the fans, if you can give them a little bit more than they ever expected, then you're doing your job.
Well, presumably the name Ivory came from the fact that you were initially sort of teamed up with Mark Henry, so I guess the ebony and ivory thing. But there's one question about your look in those early days in WWE that's been bugging me for like 13 years. What was up with the purple scarf?
Probably just to bug you for 13 years.
Yeah, that's been in the back of my mind all this time. It's not a big thing. I don't lie awake thinking about it at night. But
yeah, you do.
Every so often I'll see an Ivory match. I'll go, what's up with that scarf? Because you carried it around for months.
Well,
I don't know. That's a weird question, but when I've got a chance to ask you, I have to ask you.
it was. I think for me, it was. I'm so my voice probably sounds funny because I'm laughing and smiling. I don't know about the purple.
Oh.
What I remember in Glow was that people would remember you by your costume or your color.
Right.
So they said, "Oh, you were the one in purple for Glow." Mm-hmm. And then when you come to WWE and it's like, 10 years later, I don't know, a long time later, and you look at this huge show and there's so many great characters and it's guys mixed with girls and television and there's a lot going on. So you think to yourself, how is anyone ever going to say, "Oh, you're the one with because the girls change their clothes every night for the show." I'm like, hey, don't you have a costume and you wear it the same every time? So I was trying to, without anybody to mentor me or coach me or tell me what's up. I mean, I literally was just kind of thrown in and I didn't know how to make heads or tails of anything. So what you saw Ivory do was Lisa Moretti just shooting from the hip, right and left, and every single day making it up as she went along. So I think that the only thing that saved my ass at WWF was my passion and my energy.
Well, I'll tell you what, you made things work very, very quickly, like we said, because at the time when you were about, I think you started and Sable was still women's champion, and the title was more of a sort of a device for her. But then she left and things happened, and Debra ended up with the title, and then you ended up with the title, and it just, I'll be honest with you, because I was watching around that time, sort of on and off, and it just felt like, here's this woman who's here to rescue this championship. Here she is. Pay attention to this woman.
With her purple scarf.
Yes, with her purple scarf.
And what's up with that purple scarf?
That's what I was thinking.
What is that purple scarf, Stu?
I don't know.
Well, we did. That was a lucky time for me, I think, because I was really frightened to have to. I looked at Sable and she was so beautiful and perfect and long-legged and sexy, and I looked at that and I was like, I can't do that. I don't know how. So I sure hope they don't try to make me one of those, because that's going to be really hard. So they luckily threw me in a match right away, and I was off to go buy some new purple wrestling boots to match my scarf.
Obviously.
So thank goodness the man that made all of my boots in Glow, who lived right across the street from the Los Angeles Convention Center, was still living and breathing. So I went back to him and made me up a few pairs of boots, and I was back in the ring. I had to go on my off days, which weren't very many, because we traveled for like 10-day tours, came home for 2 days, 3 days at the most, and we're out on the road again. But on those days, I would come back to Los Feliz, where I live, and drive to Huntington Beach, which was, a 40-minute drive without traffic. And I wrestled over at Rick Bassman's school at the time. And I just, introduced myself and said, would it be okay if you guys throw me around a little bit? Because I have 10 years of ring rust to shake really fast. So I loved all the more petite guys that were a little shorter and a little thinner. Not to say that they were wimpy by any means, but they let me wrestle with them. And of course they look at you like you're supposed to know what you're doing, but I was a Glow girl, for crying out loud. A Glow girl and a POW product. and then put 10 years of not wrestling on top of that. And I had a lot to learn, a lot to shake. So thank goodness for the nice people there that let me, barge in on their training sessions. They really helped whip me into shape enough anyway to where I could fake my way through a few matches and start getting back in action. I really appreciate too that, poor Jackie Moore, she was the one that had to withstand the Sable era, because I think she was the only girl, and she really has wrestling finesse. She can do anything that's expected of her. So athletic and so well schooled, and she has such a care for the industry and the sport. But she got stuck with Sable, and that was the only person she could have an angle with. And I think back on how hard that must have been for her. So anyway, here I come. So at least she has one other person to wrestle against that can actually give her a match. And I probably wasn't much of a match for her. But at least we were out there as two girls with our boots laced up, expected to have a 6 or 8 minute match wrestling. No top pulling off, none of that stuff that I know is so, boring for the fans.
Well, that must have been quite hard at the time, because you had all those. That was the We Want Puppies time, wasn't it?
It was. And Jackie was so dedicated that she would say, we'd go out and have our matches. Of course, there was several shows in between our TV nights where we just had live performances. And we had, a good 18 to 22,000 people in the stand every night. It was a wonderful high time for Vince McMahon's promotion. So it was great to be a part of that. We had singles matches, good guy, bad guy, no storyline, no angle. Go on, girls, go have a match. So we'd go out, work our little asses off, really trying to tell a story in the ring. And every night, we want puppies, the chant would break out. We want puppies, 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 puppies. Because that, of course, was good old Road Dogg started that up when he, told Debra one day to show us your puppies. So we had to Jackie would say, that's what they're used to. We got to retrain them. Pretty soon they'll be behind our match, but we just got to ignore it and keep going, and they'll catch up. And sure enough, they did. I mean, it took a little time, but they started getting with it. Pretty soon we had Molly Holly and Jazz and Trish Stratus, and Lita came on board, and there you go. Got a new women's division. High-powered women's division. Yeah,
but before that, though, I mean, in the first year when you came in, I'm only saying this because in the prep for this interview, I was watching some of your old matches and, obsessing over your purple scarf. And in that 1999 year in particular, you had some rubbish to work with between this and the other. And I mean, Debra's no wrestler.
No. She was scared of wrestling. She didn't. She could probably give you an interview and really sympathize with the divas of today that get picked because they're models.
Yeah.
Because she was an Elizabeth. She was a really great valet, and she played the part of a manager and understood the part of a manager and a valet. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, what? I got to be in a match.
I assume she never really wanted to do it, though, did you? I assume.
Oh, she's like, I don't want to do this. This isn't my deal. I'll let you guys down. I don't want to do it. But they assured her that, we can make it work. So I loved working with Debra because she wasn't like, she knew what she was there for. She did her job really well. And she wasn't trying to be something that she didn't want to be or wasn't. The scary thing is when you get in the ring with a girl who doesn't have any talent or have any kind of control over her own body, needless to say your body, and they think they do. That's scary because you're going to like, oh crap, this is going to be a wake-up call for her and for me.
So who you talking about here then?
Oh, I'm not going to mention names, but there's been quite a few.
Okay.
Well, that's really common in the indie scene because with all the smaller independent shows, they got to have women on their program. So they, what do you got? You got the neighborhood girls that say they want to be wrestlers because it looks easy on TV. and they're 18 years old, they're rail thin, and they don't know what the hell they're doing, but they're all jacked up and they want to kick your ass. And you're like, oh God, this is not going to be nice. This is going to get ugly and it's not going to play out very entertainingly. I ran across several of those when I finally got laid off from WWE, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to the indie scene now. First thing I'd say walking in is, how old are you? And they say, oh, I'm 18. You're like, oh crap. So, they don't have many years under their belt. And then they're just so confident. That comes with age, I guess. When you're young, you feel like you can do anything.
Yeah, you're indestructible, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, back then it was a lot. Yeah, a lot. I just always felt like I was going to be the person slowing everybody else up. So I really, like we talked last podcast, took it on myself to speed things up and shake the ring rust and, try to get out there and if nothing else, give it my energy and passion. And, I made a few embarrassing moves out there, I'm sure, plenty of them. But hopefully, if you were focusing on the purple scarf, you weren't noticing.
It was all a distraction all along. That's what it was.
And then, what do I say in one of the DVDs? Like, I think they asked me, what's up with the purple scarf? I said, it's to attract and distract.
It works.
Al Snow never let me forget that line.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Attract and distract.
So I mean, from working with Debra and so on, I mean, the next big thing that you did was working with the Fabulous Moolah.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this is another one where she's anything but the 18-year-old real thin girls that you're talking about here. This is the complete opposite.
Okay.
And like, look, with all respect due to both her and May and what they've done over the years and so on, how do you go out and work a match with these women?
You tell me.
I've watched it. I don't know. But, I mean, I don't know. I remember watching your match with Fabulous Moolah back at No Mercy 99, where you ended up losing the title to her. And I remember just thinking, what? What did I just watch? And I don't know. I wasn't a fan of Moolah getting the belt. Well, how did that come about? I mean, I know it's Moolah. I know she and Vince have had a long relationship, but whose idea was it to put Moolah with the belt again?
Well, I don't know, but it gives me hope. I mean, maybe me and Molly Holly will be the next Moolah and May.
Oh God!
And we'll be out there. We'll be out there when we're 75 years old, taking the same bumps with some young chick.
Oh man, that's just giving me an amazing flash forward. I'm done with that.
I still got my purple scarf too. I got my purple scarf, and I'm saving my diva bikinis because we'll have one of those matches. Remember Mae Young with her top coming off, and they have.
How could I forget?
Prosthetic boobs.
That's burned in everybody's mind. Trust me.
Wasn't that something else? That was so funny. Those big long raisin boobs that they glued on her chest.
Oh my.
Yes.
Those guys were really fun to work with because they're super showmen, and they certainly have the years of experience to where they don't care what anybody in gorilla position tells them. Hey, Ivory, May, Moolah, your minutes got cut. Instead of 8, you got 4. And they would take 2 minutes just to get down to the ring. So Moolah told me one time, she said as we were going out, she said, remember, sweetheart, it's live television. We take as long as we want.
Professional.
I thought that was brilliant. It was like, yeah, you go, girl. You know, they're not going to yell at you. Let's take our time out there. And she was known for being really, she had a reputation, Moolah did anyway, not May, but Moolah had a reputation for really being able to lay it in and take it out on you if she wanted to.
I've heard that. Yeah.
But she was always really fun to work with and nice to me, and no pranks, no problems, you know, always professional and fun to be with, rolling around on the ground. And yeah, she was really good to me. Maybe I was just lucky, huh?
Well, did you ever have this situation thinking, okay, this is the Fabulous Moolah who's in her 70s. I'm wrestling her, and obviously, people are going to get hurt from time to time. You're thinking, I've really, really got to make sure that this woman doesn't get badly hurt.
I think that their bodies speak for themselves. Look at the build on those girls. They have like the quintessential wrestling body. You know, the little legs, little arms, and this big pea pod body. It's like, the short Hispanic guys. They got the build for wrestling. There's nothing that can hurt on them. I mean, granted they're women and granted they're old, but I just felt like I'm dealing with the best of the best here. They've been doing it their whole lives. They know how to protect themselves. They know how to fall down. They teach people how to fall down.
Well, speaking of that,
I don't worry about that, and I trust my own abilities to protect my opponent. The people I'm in the ring with. So I didn't really ever feel scared for them in them getting hurt, but I was very frightful of just the whole show coming off for the sake of the wrestling action. You kind of had to wait for them to get up.
Yes.
And I watched it was Rock and Hulk Hogan. Remember they had their WrestleMania moment?
Yep.
And they had a few matches leading up to that. And I was watching Rock, how he worked with Hulk, because Hulk had horrible knee issues, really was really not very mobile when he came back for those big matches. And Rock, of course, is up. He's young and energetic and fired up. So I watched what he would do to fill the time between spots, between hits and moves, and it's just about kind of throwing focus. You just keep moving. I mean, there's a real talent to that. You can't stand there with your hands in your pocket.
No. Or
everyone's going to notice. They don't get up very fast. So again, energy and passion. You just have to, like the refs do in a match. If you're not interested, nobody else will be. So whatever's going on, you got to act like you're really into it.
Well, I'll say this. If you thought Hulk Hogan moved badly back in those days, you need to see him in 2012. This man can barely walk.
They're still hiring him, aren't they?
Yeah, I know, and they're still talking about a match with Ric Flair later this year. So.
Oh my goodness!
Because that feud has to be settled someday.
Yeah, someday.
Speaking just of Mae and Moolah before we move off those two, whilst you and Moolah worked in the ring and you guys were as safe as you could be, given Moolah's age and so on, Mae Young, on the other hand, during that title change match, took a couple of bumps, basically flat back bumps from the apron to the floor.
Yeah.
And actually in the short match where you won the title back from Moolah, she took a bump over the top rope.
Yeah,
this woman's indestructible.
Yeah, it was one of those bumps too, where when you're watching it, you're like, ow, oh, ow, oh.
That's exactly what we did when we watched it.
Yeah, it wasn't a real clean bump, was it? It was like, is she gonna make it? Yeah, remember she had to slingshot herself over, like get a little momentum, rocking and rocking and rocking. Oh, here it goes. I know.
I think she's 89 at the minute, and I think she turns 90 later this year. So we were actually suggesting that possibly next year at WrestleMania she'll be in the Divas title match.
Yeah.
Just so she can wrestle in her 90s. She's going to ask, and Vince is probably going to let her do her. So.
I hope they let her. That's right. Good. She was instrumental. She actually trained Crash. Remember Crash?
Yes.
Rest in peace. Another one. Anyway, they were out of the same neck of the woods, Northern California. So he trained in her camp for a little short while. But they were always real dear to each other because they had history. Neat ladies, I had a nice moment with Moolah was when we did Access, and I did the 24-hour broadcast with Michael Cole. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it was Access when we had WrestleMania in Anaheim, I believe. I think it was LA. I think it was Anaheim.
Yes, it was.
And that was early on, because that was probably I remember my outfits, and they were kind of the ones I wore in the early days of 2000 or 2001. So we did a 24-hour broadcast, and that was my first time doing anything like that. And I remember Kevin Dunn, our executive producer, who does, works the truck and all the camera angles. I went in there and I was like, I got this big stack of paper that was all about WrestleMania and all the history. And, because they just told me like 2 days before the thing was going to happen that I was going to be a part of this. And I said, well, I'm a little concerned about, I don't really know all of this stuff in and out, all these facts about WrestleMania because I'm just on board now. My interest in WWE is starting right now. I don't know the past. And he said, Lisa, you just be yourself. That's enough. And I felt this great sense of relief. Oh, okay. I know how to do that. So that's what I did for 24 hours. And it came off great. But one of my best memories of that was sitting at this, beautiful interview desk with Michael Cole. It was the beginning of the day, and Moolah came, and we did a little short interview with her. And it's on that broadcast, but it was really a nice moment interviewing her, and I was able to tell her, just for all the ladies, how much we appreciate her legacy in sticking with something her whole life so that the rest of us can enjoy being part of it. Sure was dedicated to wrestling, wasn't she?
Absolutely.
Yeah, she gets a lot of bad press, but I mean, I've always been the sort of person that thought if it wasn't for Moolah, there might not be women's wrestling around today. It might have gone the same way as the midget wrestling,
Yeah.
So,
except for the midgets get a hell of a lot more work in the movie and stunt industry than lady wrestlers do, don't they?
That's true.
They're doing pretty good. I don't think we should feel sorry for them at all.
But you're a movie star now too, so
Yeah.
Okay, I want to drag it back to 1999, and I hate to sort of do this because we do love you and all, but I'm going to bring up another horrendous match.
Okay.
And that's the Armageddon evening gown swimming pool match.
Oh yeah, that was horrific. I agree.
That's another word for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just explain that match.
Well, they'll only find out when I finally do write a book about you see what's on camera, you see what made it to the cameras, but boy, all the stuff I wrestled with in my own mind and soul and heart when they tell us what we were going to do that night. Ooh, I sure had a lot to say about it. I didn't speak up, of course, but the girls probably heard about it in the locker room. But again, passion and energy. You giving something a Mae and Moolah wrestling angle, and at the time I wasn't able to embrace it and say, wow, here's the good stuff about this. You just complain that you're not in there with the hottest, most, like a wrestler that can make you look better than you are. I mean, of course they did in a whole different way that I couldn't even see. But, I was ready to have some kind of a match where I could look like Scotty Too Hottie, Scotty Hottie. Those guys are so talented. Everybody was. Big Boss Man, all those guys. Okay, I'm rambling. Anyway. The evening gowns
in a pool, yes.
The slop matches, all those things were just stupid.
Yes.
To me. And messy, gosh, you'd be up all night washing the mud out of the crevices of the title belt. Oh, what complaint. But it really did, in looking back, it made some really entertaining stuff happen. It was different. Everything happens in the squared circle that night. Well, why not have a little side pool of slop, and we focus over there for half a second as something happens in the gravy or the snow or the mud, or what else were we in? This one happened to be in a Doughboy swimming pool. And probably the only regret to it is that if you're handed this slop match of some sort, you don't have the kind of people in there that can bring it, that make it the very best slop match it can be.
Yes. So
again, it's like who you're working with. It doesn't matter in what capacity. It's who you're working with. And anybody out there that has an opponent, an adversary that's really good, you're going to go miles with that. So I guess the rule of thumb is to be the best you can be for your partner. your adversary, your opponent. So who did I have? I had Barbara Bush, BB, in there. And who else? Jackie was in there.
For a short time. And, of course, Miss Kitty.
And Miss Kitty. So BB, she looked good going in and looked good wet and slimy and all, but as far as the action goes, they're not very animated. And then Miss Kitty is just, she couldn't wait for the whole thing to be over just so she could flash or whatever she did that night that made the headlines. Kind of stupid, Anyway. Yeah, that was my only thing I was disgruntled about was I would have much rather passed the title on Barbara Bush, BB, than Miss Kitty, because then it kind of went south from there. That was kind of the low point. Everybody in the locker room was ready to have that person be gone.
Okay, well we stepped away from the conversation last week when you mentioned Miss Kitty, that how if she had seen her at Cauliflower Alley you'd have had to kill her. But look, we got to ask. I mean, what's the deal with Kitty? I mean, why the hit?
I don't know. I guess it's just it's a little bit of a poison. It's like you got a garden and here comes the roundup. That's what she's like. She was like a poison. She probably has got lots of really super great qualities that I just can't embrace. But for the actual, I always felt like if we all collectively do what's right for the show, and that, of course, is going to have a lot of opinions as to what's right for the show. But if you just stick to let's, as a whole, make a great show, then everybody's got a job tomorrow. So it's not about killing off everybody's fame. It's not about killing off everybody's character. It's not about using everybody's character to bring your character to the front. So that's kind of how the roundup works. She was a poison. So she used her Jerry Lawler card just to get on board. And then Jerry Lawler, of course, was an announcer, so he's got a lot of push on who he can say great things about and interject about during his spiel for 2 hours on TV. And then he's also privileged to be in on the writers' meetings. So here you've got a person that comes on board that has somebody rooting for him. So she kind of snuck her way into, an angle with Chyna as the mini-me girl. Look at all the stuff she got on board with that was already existing without her help. Right to Censor, she got in on that even. And she got in on the women's title. And what did she do with it? Nothing. She's not a wrestler. She can't wrestle. And it was picking up steam. So yeah, kind of just, and then she kind of always brought like a trashy, the sex sales is such an easy place to go that why don't we save that for when the whole show is tanking and they're going to do that anyway. So if we've got actual talent that we can utilize, even Barbara Bush is a talent that you can utilize. She has her own character that was kind of, it was her character to be kind of a big boob ditzy girl, right?
I guess.
So, you got Jackie who can wrestle, you got me, you've got Debra. We had some really good star power, Chyna. And
Lula was there at the time as well.
Yeah. So you just, and so if the only thing you can bring is that I'm going to be nasty. I'm a female and I'm going to be nasty on TV. That's pretty pitiful. So that's kind of why I, felt like, come on, man, you got this awesome platform. You got all the talent in the world here. Look around, measure up. What do you got? Bring it to the table. Don't just fall back on, I'm going to be nasty on TV.
Well, I guess that kind of segues into, like you mentioned, about the right to censor bit, which was your sort of next thing, because you mentioned about how you don't necessarily need the sex if the show's working, and that's kind of how the right to censor ethos was, I suppose, as well. And tell us a bit about that, because that must have been a massive change from the purple scarf.
Yeah. Well, one more note on the be nasty on TV is that when you compare Deborah McMichael to Miss Kitty, you've got one girl that just is sexy. and she can wear a suit with those beautiful long legs and that beautiful, graceful, beauty queen manner that she had out there. And she can play a part as a valet, a manager to her wrestlers. And what comes out of it but this popular chant, show us your puppies, because all we ever got to see was cleavage. So that is having a character, bringing something to the table without just pulling your jacket off and showing the puppies. So Miss Kitty, who has the body of a teenager, which there's nothing wrong with it. It's gorgeous and cute and slender and, but she doesn't reek of sex appeal. So when she says, I'm going to come to TV and the first thing I'm going to do is just flash my naked boobs on Raw, after winning the title, the women's title, then what does it do? It where do you go from there? You've already shown them your puppies. So it just didn't make real good sense to me as to how are you going to build a character if you've already given them the punchline, So it kind of, and it was just, to me, I guess maybe I took it too personal as far as, hey, I'm here, I'm a wrestler, I'm committed to getting us all recognized and having somebody actually say, wow, I like it when the ladies go out and wrestle. It's entertaining. And then what do you know? They give us a belt to give us some status, to have like an actual division if we care to take care of it or not. And so on the changing of hands on the title, she embraces it by flashing her boobs at the end. And so what gets talked about? Her flashing her boobs or the change of the gold? Yeah, so there you go. It's kind of like for all the ladies out there that wrestle, for all the ladies out there that would love to be champion, how does it make, it tarnishes it for everybody. And then somebody else, like me and Jackie, got to come a few years later and clean off the dust and start wrestling again and retrain the audience to not just wait for someone to show their boobs. So you just keep making it harder for the next guy, not easier, when the girls jump quickly to just delivering tits and ass. Okay, so what was the question? Here we go. Right to censor.
Yeah, just a little bit about that, because that's a bit of a departure from Tina Ferrari and the original Ivory.
Yeah, well, and then right to censor was just, that was just for me personally, it wasn't that, I'm a big censor person. It was just that it was a great gimmick to be heels. It came off, the idea came from when we went from only cable with Raw to saving the UPN network. We saved it when we brought SmackDown to their network because they were just sinking fast. Warner Brothers, WB, and UPN with a brand new network TV show, station. So they needed programming really bad. And UPN was just taking a nosedive. So SmackDown, the company, Vince McMahon's company, went public. We had the big stock thing, and all the wrestlers got in on some stock, and they went network television and chose UPN to do business with. So boom, their ratings skyrocketed. UPN was on the map. That's why Stone Cold and I were invited to do, what was that? TV Weekly? Is that what it's called? The rag that, is just all about the TV industry. And we were on the cover of that. Real famous photographer took our pictures, and that was a really big deal. So we rescued them, and with network television and a company that's gone public, then you bring in the censors. And so Vince McMahon was getting letters and tons of mail and heat from these censor groups that were counting every time somebody bleeped or said a cuss word or, anything that was lewd or a little bit, double entendre-ish. So he got really sick of it, and he decided, like Vince McMahon would, nobody's going to squash out my ideas or my style of writing or my show. So he made Steven Richards a right to censor guy. And he started his gimmick by being out in the audience with his white shirt and his floody black pants with his white socks sticking out and a sign, and he started picketing and screaming and yelling from the front row. And then he'd hop over the banister and he'd try to get involved in the match. And then that led to other guys teaming up with him. And that was the whole Right to Censor movement. And then Ivory got hooked in because I think they wanted a girl, and they thought, well, Loudmouth Ivory can do it. And I was just hanging around backstage waiting for something fun to fall in my lap. So when Stephanie McMahon asked me if I would be willing to do it, I said, hell yeah, what's she like? What's it all about? Let's go. Sunk my teeth into that one, and it was a real success.
I just completely forgot about that Parents Television Council. The second you started talking about it, it just completely snapped back into my brain, because I used to go on that site just to research, and they'd have the traffic light system as far as which programs are really, really bad to watch. And SmackDown always had the red lights across there. Buffy at the time also had the red lights across there as well, saying these shows are really bad to show to your children. And I actually thank the Parents Television Council for that, quite frankly, because I helped to write a dissertation about it. So thanks for the qualification, boys.
Hey, that's pretty good. That came full circle, didn't it?
Yes, it did, yes. And now we end up talking to you about it.
Remember the sirens when that was our entrance music?
Oh, that theme.
Oh, it was so annoying, wasn't it?
Must have been worse walking down to the ring with it.
Yeah, the thing that was really difficult about playing Ivory as Right to Censor was that I loved my job so much, and we were so successful with that heel gimmick that, before I would walk out, I would have to turn on my I hate everyone in the audience attitude. Because I was just loving it. I was ear to ear grinning in the gorilla position. We would hear them, the music would hit, and everyone would, woo! The whole place would come alive with woo! And you'd have to switch gears and put your frown on and get into that evil girl. But boy, I remember having to do interviews too when you come home to your nice little place, and I used to say, I'm putting Ivory Right to Censor in the trunk, and I'm going to leave her at work here, and I'm going to leave her for a while. And then they'd have you do interviews from your house on your days off. And it was so hard to pull her out of the trunk and be her for even just 10 minutes. It was tough. But that was a really good storyline, and I think it got to be so well hated and popular that I think the powers that be, that some of the other wrestlers that wanted that kind of attention, they put a squash on it. Some of those up and coming star performers, I'm giving you hints without saying anything.
Yes, it was around about that time. Yes, we're getting the hints. Yes.
Yeah, around about that time. So yeah, that was a hard thing to explain to everybody too. Like, Ivory, what happened? And so we all made up our own stories as to why the Right to Censor group dissolved. I said it was because Stevie Richards started looking at the Diva Search girls or something.
During your time with the Right to Censor, you got to work a program with Chyna. Well, I say a program. It was a couple of matches, and what were your thoughts on working with Chyna, first of all? Because she gave the impression after working with the guys for so long that she considered moving down to the Divas division to be, I guess, beneath her, but she ended up doing it anyway. Did she resent being there working with the girls?
Yes, she did. She did. She thought it was beneath her, which is pretty silly, isn't it? Because that's just somebody who is, as I call it, believing in their own entrance music.
Yes, good point.
You look a certain way, and therefore you have been granted this fabulous platform to work with everybody who can make you look better than you are in the ring. And they all had to. The guys did. She didn't, appreciate it very much. She just felt very deserving of that spot, which she's just the luckiest person in the world to have these great wrestlers taking bumps that she, from her. And then when they would deliver it to her, she wouldn't sell very good. She wouldn't sell. You're still a woman. You really aren't the ninth wonder of the world. It's the character you play. So it would serve your character really well to put the men over as being really powerful and strong, like they look. Because you can beat them after they look really strong by you selling their punches and kicks. That puts you up even higher. So she was a taker in the ring, not a giver. So, and then, when we did the Right to Censor thing, it was, I thought, a really gracious, angle. It went for a couple months. It was really easy because the whole gist of it was she's not going to get her hands on you, Ivory, until WrestleMania. We're going to tease it and tease it and tease it. So it was pretty easy. We didn't have to have matches or anything. The guys would usually come in and rescue me if she was getting close to me. And we had the whole neck injury. Remember, we put her out of business by hurting her neck. I think Val Venus and me, we'd like double pile driver her or something. And then we got to, remember I mimicked her but we did a Saturday night satire, and I sat down with.
Oh, I remember that.
Remember who posed as JR? I think it was, I don't know who did that.
It was Val. It was Val who posed as JR. I remember that.
Yeah,
that was great.
Val was JR and I was Chyna, and they dressed me up in her sweatsuit, and we did a mock interview. That was really fun to do. And we acted like, now that the Right to Censor showed me the light, I understand that my posing for Playboy was wrong, and it's good that I'm not wrestling anymore, and blah, blah, blah. So that was really funny. So we had that afternoon just to kind of study. I had to go in the trailer, the truck, and watch her old interview with JR and kind of try to pick up on some of her nuances and emulate that in my interview. That was fun. So that was really a fun angle for me. It was like one of the only true angles I got where something runs for a long time and has a pinnacle ending.
And the ending, of course, was WrestleMania.
Still, the only regret I have in my whole career is that I should have kicked out at WrestleMania.
Oh dear God,
this is what we want to...
That would have been great.
Yeah, this is what we want to talk about a little bit.
If Mae and Moolah hadn't taught me anything, it was to, hey, it's live. Do what you want to do. And when she laid on me like she did at the very end, I thought, that is so rank. It was a squash match, and it was really good. Fans wanted to see it. It was entertaining and short. But at the very end, if she was laying on me like that, wouldn't it have been great to just kick out and make her pin me right?
Or pull her down for a crucifix.
She would have been so awesome. I probably would have got fired or something, but it would have been memorable. And then the very next day at lunch, Stone Cold said to me, he waved me over and he goes, I didn't like the way she pinned you. And I said, me neither. He goes, you should have kicked out. I'm like, that's what I was thinking.
Damn, trust your instincts.
I always love that because that's the lesson. Trust your instincts. Because, it's like the memories I have of working with Stacy Keibler and Torrie. When I got split off, after Tough Enough, I got split off. And here Tough Enough is on the air. These people are busting their asses to just try to get a spot in our ring. And then I got to go on a road trip working a bikini match with Torrie and Stacy, where I'm the one that powders out of the ring because, oh my God, the blondes are going to kick my ass. It just didn't make sense to me. I mean, it was a disservice to our show Tough Enough, where we want to show people how real wrestling is, how physical it is. And I'm a trainer on there. And then they put me out on the road with the girls doing a bikini peel-off, competition thing where I'm the one that says, I'm not doing it. And then they kick my ass and I lose. So and every night it was the same thing. And I kept trying, again, passion and energy. I kept trying to make what was given to me, like a swimming pool match, right? What's given to you, make the best of it. And what bugged me, again, was the people in the ring with me. They weren't listening. They weren't paying attention. They weren't really interested in every single night. Let's make it a little better than last night. It was just cookie cutter, where I'm not going to even be here until I hear my cue. And then, Stacy takes a cue from me when I'm ranting and raving about this, this stupid bikini match. She takes a cue, and then she does her line. Well, it's not a line. It's live. We're in front of a live audience. It's theater. Listen to me. React to me. I might say something that you might want to react to. So that's kind of how I felt with Chyna. It was, I should have kicked out so that she could actually, have to step up to a level of really performing on the spot. You know?
You get the impression that none of those girls could improvise if they needed to.
Exactly.
Well, actually, that brings me to another point. Actually, I wanted to mention, and it's something that I think certainly helped the Divas division, and it's my countryman. That's Finlay. He came in. He came in and he was put as the trainer for the Divas, and really a lot of the problems that you had over the years of trying to get these girls into some sort of working order became his problem.
But it's not a problem for him, is it?
Well, he did really well with them.
He was so good. He just really worked with everybody. He loved it, and he really wanted the best for the ladies. I remember he worked with Jazz. And Jazz is so powerful looking, and he really embraced the fact that we need people that look different from each other so that we can play off of that. And Jazz had it. She was stocky and buffed and just chiseled and powerful, and her wrestling was powerful. Sometimes she actually worked a little too light because what she looks like is it's like a Bradshaw clothesline. You know what I mean? Bradshaw laid it in way too many times, too real to be even called professional. But if he laid off, if he did it like a puss, it just wouldn't look right because he's so big and powerful. So Jazz was, he would take her in, and when she was having some of her angles with Trish. And I remember one time before they went out, it wasn't right before they went out, he was wanting to prep her for her to be as powerful as she could be. And he took her into one of these rooms where we had some catering that had happened before. And he had her get really pissed and throw chairs around in the room. And it was all designed to kind of release some kind of fury in the woman so that she could come out with that and really make a stance and, really so the audience could read that in her. So he was dedicated to drawing on our characters and bringing out the best in everybody. And he was certainly responsible for Trish Stratus rising up in the ring like she did. Trish brought the willingness to do and learn and perfect, and Finlay molded her, taught her, worked with her every night. It was awesome. They were a great team. So yeah, he's great. We love him.
The slight disappointing thing, I would assume, for you was that by this point you were getting used more sparingly, and this was the time then when you had a bunch of girls who, like your Jazz, like your Trish, like your Victorias, people who were coming in who were better wrestlers, and were you sort of thinking, God, I want to wrestle more. I'm busy doing like TV stuff and Tough Enough, and I want to be back in the ring with these girls.
I definitely wanted to. I was so envious and felt I was pretty disgruntled about it. But again, you always wonder, what's it all about? Why things happen? They all happen for a reason. So, but I really did. I looked on, appreciatively for them, but also with the forlornness of, I wish I could be in the ring with those guys. I just knew it was so much fun. They were having a blast. And I was just really happy too that the women's division had a real division. It really, I got to watch it from its little spattered parts evolve into something that was really powerful and entertaining. So, and once here and there I got to be a part of it and bounce into a ring with Molly Holly or Jazz or, all 6 of us were in there for that pay-per-view match that was one of my favorites. Everybody did their finishing moves. It was really fun. That was
I'd argue that, like you said, it was nice to see it grow and flourish. I'd argue that there wouldn't be that division if it wasn't for people like yourself who were there at the very sort of embryonic stages taking it seriously.
Yeah, true. I mean, if you don't have somebody there that thinks it can be, then it never will be. So that's why, I always tell myself, hey, don't be so hard. Everybody's got a spot on the show. But the people like Miss Kitty that come in and they have that poisonous, cancerous effect on something you care about, you just can't not, you can't not notice it. in your heart, you're feeling like kicking her ass for it, you know. And the Stacy Keibler types that were absolutely athletic, and Torrie, you know, she came on, and they have their spot on the show as being beautiful and certainly entertaining. I mean, Stacy was so fun to watch. You know, she was just elegant in the ring, and anything that they, you know, could, work around her kind of limited experience as a wrestler, she could pull off a few moves, and she had a real athletic sense, so she had the good timing, just like a dancer. You know, she's athletic, totally athletic. So it was nice that she could pull it off, and she had the right people around her and the people in the ring with her that always make her look better than she was. But to me, it was just that whole listening thing. If you're here and you're on the show and you're lucky enough to have a few minutes in the ring to entertain these people that paid for a seat, then you owe them a good performance. That's what we're here for. And the only thing I have to say about, you know, in disregard to her performance is that ability, the want, and the desire to own up to that responsibility. You're the entertainer. Let's give them something fresh every single night. And if you're going to throw a punch at me, who is a lady wrestler and a coach on Tough Enough, and you're dating Test, who's a guy that's a great skilled wrestler, then can you at least ask him to show you how to throw a punch so that it's believable for the audience?
Yes.
You've got to own up to that. You're getting paid to be good at what you do. So if you got to beat me up, then I'd appreciate it if you either ask me how to do it or ask somebody, but care enough to make it believable. And that's what pissed me off. So I had to give him a little lesson one night, and it was one of my lovely moments where I got in trouble and everything for doing it. But it was kind of a kick out, you know. It was the old I should have kicked out with Chyna.
Mm-hmm.
So this was later in the game, and I just followed my instincts, and I asked Finlay during one of these bikini things if I could really, you know, do a shoot promo on him. Said, yeah, sure, go ahead. Because I think he knew how much I was boiling inside. So night after night, and Chuck Palumbo, I used to drive with him, and he can attest to it too, that I'd go in with, you know, decent spirit, and then after the show and after the performance, and it came out the same stupid way, I'd be bawling and pissed and mad and asking Chuck, you know, and he'd be like, oh, shut up, man, you're getting paid, aren't you? Like, yeah, but it's not about that. It's about putting a good show on. They don't care. They're not listening. They're not even doing it, throwing punches any good. It's so embarrassing. It's so stupid. Why doesn't anybody say anything? So I asked Finlay if I could do a shoot promo, at least, you know, really, really wake him up, you know. He said, yeah, sure. So it's Fresno, California. I went out there and I did more than a shoot promo. I changed the whole match. So we weren't now painting by numbers. The girls, all of a sudden, you know, I really hit it hard. I mean, I just said some nasty things. And nasty enough to where they were, you know, they were leaning on the ropes and not paying attention to me as I was talking. It was like, Ivory's on, she's doing a speech, we don't have to do anything, so let's just fall asleep over here. It's like, no, you're on stage right now. People are looking at you. I said some really rude things, and they started listening. They were like, what? Did she just say that? And they started looking at each other and looking at me like, uh-oh, things are changing. What's going on? Deer in the headlights. And then I took my robe off. I said, I don't give a crap about what you people in the audience think about my body. Here, take a look. I took my robe off. And they're supposed to grab my robe and it falls off and I'm embarrassed and I run off, right? So I'm standing there in my bikini. Now what are they going to do?
And what did they do?
So it made everybody pay attention. And I'm telling you, people were throwing shit at me. It was really a successful gig. I mean, it was the first time in this whole bikini fight competition thing we had to do every night. It was the first time people were throwing shit at me because they were believing it because it was real. And nobody out there knew what was going to happen next except for me. So all of a sudden it was like the girls were listening and it got really interesting because they were engaged. So it was working.
So what was
I
their
went
reaction?
and I pissed the fans off. I took my own robe off. I said, I don't give a crap what you guys think. And I'm going to, and now, you know, for anybody that's ever watched Tough Enough, I said, you know, the people that spent the time taking bumps and learning how to be good at this stuff, you know, would know what to do right now when I kick your ass. And I went at the girls and I took them down to the ground and then I started coaching them. I said, okay, now pull my hair. You go this way. You go that way. Throw me into the rope. Throw me into I was coaching them the whole time. And I say, okay, now throw me out of the ring. And they threw me out and I left. And then they continued on their competition with each other. And they have this little ending they did with a little spank on the butt, you know. But boy, did I catch hell. Johnny Ace was back there and Finlay came and, you know, we were all called into a room and Stacy and Torrie came back, you know, after the thing and Stacy starts in, you know, why did she do that to me? I mean, that's not fair. We're not experienced wrestlers. We can't learn that way. I said, you know what? I'm just trying to teach you something. You're in a wrestling ring, aren't you? Not everything's always planned. You got to learn to be spontaneous and you better start listening out there. I learned by people throwing me around and talking in my ear, and if I don't listen, I'm going to get hurt, or I'm going to hurt somebody. You need to wake up. But, you know, she was like, well, tell her that we're just not that experienced, and we can't learn that way. So I got in trouble, but, you know, it was a redeeming moment for me. And I think they did learn something that night. And I'm a good teacher. Hey, what can I say?
Can we find you a job back in WWE again and you can cut those promos on some of the girls around today?
Yeah. I mean, you know what I did to him? I just did what Mondo Guerrero would have done.
Yeah. We heard the story about, he made one of the girls cry, didn't he?
Yeah. And so he told us from the very beginning, he said, don't lean on the ropes and listen to me. And if you don't, you're going to get hurt or you're going to hurt someone else. So when I was doing my passionate promo that was real, I made it up. You know, I did some writing that the prior night, and I was like, I am going to say this. I don't care what happens. I can't stand it anymore. And when I was saying it, and I saw them, and they were not listening, and they were leaning on the ropes, and it was like this Mondo came out in me. Oh, it was great. I wish somebody got that on tape, man. That would be so fun to watch.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's got to be out there somewhere, huh?
We can hope so. If anyone's heard or seen this, let us know. We need to present this to the masses.
Yeah, it had to be good. So woke up.
I mean, it seems the last few years of your time in WWE was typified by, you know, being the go-to person for various projects, be it Tough Enough, be it presenting an experience and so on, be it going down to train in OVW, amongst other things. And then, I mean, how did it all come to an end? At what point was it determined that the Ivory road in WWE had reached its conclusion?
Well, it was explained to me that, and I think this is probably true, that first of all, the company, when I did the WWE experience and traded my boots in for an IFB, which you guys know what that is, stick that microphone in your ear, into the back of you, and you can hear what's going on in the truck as you're live and you're talking on a microphone and fans are all around you and you're doing, you know, like that announcer thing. So that was a great experience, and I wish I would have appreciated and lived more in the moment, but I was still tied to my wrestling boots and I wanted to be in the ring. So here I had the easiest job in the world, and I was making really good money, and I didn't have to rent my own cars anymore or rent my own hotels. I didn't have to pay for any of that stuff. I actually had an expense, account because I was an employee of WWE at that time. So things were going really good, and they proposed to me that I move to Connecticut, and I think if I would have done that, I probably would still be working for them now in some regard. But I just couldn't see leaving the West Coast for the East Coast and having to spend twice as much money on everything in Connecticut because it's so expensive to live there, and you're far away from your family and all that. And, you know, kind of recognizing, too, that the show itself wasn't really easy for me to support anymore because it had gone downhill so much with its storyline, the quality of the talent, and, of course, in the women's division, there was no women's division. They were firing all of the wrestlers, or they were retiring, and they were replacing us with the Diva Search contestant. So it was just time. You know, it was harder and harder for me to talk positively about the production. So it was explained to me by Kevin Dunn, our executive producer and my boss at the time, that we had switched networks. And we were existing on Spike where we had tons of television time. And that's why we were able to have a show like WWE Experience, as well as Heat. And, boy, we had, you know, several shows on Spike, Raw, including Raw. And we went from, 6 or 8 hours of television a week to 3 hours a week on USA. So our show had returned to the USA Network, but they were only giving us 3 hours. So the WWE Experience was going bye-bye. We had enough time for our 2-hour Raw show and 1 extra hour. And they did kind of like a Heat show or something with that. I'm not sure what they did with that. And that was it, you know, so it was brought to me that it's time that, you know, you've done everything you can do and there's nothing else for you to do.
Did it feel organic? Did it feel that was the end? Did you feel that, you know, okay, yeah, you're probably right, this is the end of my time, or did you think there was still stuff to do in WWE?
No, it was the end. It was good. It was good timing. It was, you know, I was ready. It was a 6-year run. It was pretty long and good for a girl, and I really felt so blessed to do all the different things I did. I mean, I saw the pyramids. You know, I saw the pyramids in Egypt on a side trip in our own private jet because, you know, I mean, there's just amazing things that you got to see and do because I was their go-to girl. I did every bit of promotion. I was the WWE ambassador all around the world.
That's
and
not a bad job.
I really believe in the people. The people in that show are what makes it. The talent. Boy, those wrestlers are such neat people, and they give so much of their lives to bring that entertainment to the fans. There's a huge expense to living the life of a rock star and being gone all the time and away from the family. And these guys have kids with these beautiful women they marry, and they never get to see them grow up much until they retire. So they've got a lot of time to make up for when they finally get home. And then, you know, God bless those that didn't make it, you know, that died young, and they certainly have left their mark on the industry and all the people in it, and the fans will never forget all the wonderful people that have passed away.
You know, here's a question, and I don't know actually if you'll have an answer to this, but it's just it occurred to me when you were talking about people who passed away. As we record this on Tuesday, and probably going to be going up on the site on Wednesday when you might be listening to this. But yesterday, as we talked, would have been Owen Hart's birthday, and I know you worked with him just when you came into the business. One thing we've always heard about Owen is that, you know, he was such a nice guy that everyone seems to have an Owen Hart story. Do you have an Owen Hart story, like a favorite one that you could share?
I don't have an Owen Hart story, but I was there, you know, amongst him and his happiness. I know that he was a family man. I know that he was always really nice to the kids, and I know that the guys just adored him, and they all have stories about his ribs and his jokes and his different voices he'd use, and yeah, but I never got to travel with Owen, but I was around him, and I definitely identified that he was, you know, just an honest, wonderful person. I got to meet his family when we were up in Canada doing some house shows. And, I was there that night when it happened, and it was, just a horrible, horrible thing. So he's one of them. It's just sad. It's always sad when you see young people go too soon. And even if they're jerks, you know, it's still sad.
Even if they're jerks, yeah.
He just happened to be one of the really super neat, nice, honest family people. Saved every dime he made for his family. And, yeah, so we're blessed to have known him and all the people that have watched his entertainment. Left a good mark, didn't he?
He did. I'm slightly disappointed you weren't the victim of one of his ribs at some point. I guess you would have been you would have been at some point, I guess.
Yeah.
In fact, that might be a nice place just to sort of finish up, and that would be, were you ever the victim of any particular ribs that you can share?
Let's see. Well, I did have somebody glued my zippers on my suitcase once. And it was when I was kind of new, so it was probably one of our nasty girls in the locker room. And that's not a good thing, you know, that's like, ooh, you don't want to, so I went to Al Snow, actually, because I identified him early on as being a nice guy. And, you know, not Mr. Top Card, you know, untouchable, real, you know, you could go and confide in him. So I said, hey, can I ask you a question? And I just noticed that somebody has crazy glued some of the zippers on my suitcase. Luckily, I was able to get into them still. And he said, yeah, that's not a good thing, but don't give it any attention. Don't mention it to anybody. So I didn't, and it just went away. That was the only kind of troublesome thing that ever happened.
Advice for everyone there, ladies and gents. Don't rise to the bait.
Don't. So, you know, that's like, I guess, good for your whole life. Don't pay any attention to it. Don't give it attention. Somebody trying to throw you some crap, just look the other way. Don't let it stick.
Cool. And, again, just, I briefly mentioned it, but, I mean, the current WWE product, do you watch it at all anymore, or do you keep up with it in any way?
No, not really.
It's been a while since you've had a chance to maybe check out what some of the talent's like today.
Yeah, I haven't. I met, probably the closest to it is seeing, AJ, who was a Tough Enough, person this last show. Mm-hmm. Current Tough Enough AJ, I saw him at the Cauliflower Alley Club. And we actually, Nadine and I, Ashley Cartier and myself, we went out with him to meet some of his friends. And he was just really enjoyable. What a great guy. And, and one of the Tough Enough guys, I forget his name, but he's a handsome guy, fellow. And it was great that they were at Cauliflower Alley Club. So here you go. Anybody looking at trying to break into the industry and they've taken it seriously, those guys are working their path pretty good. They actually, JR was there, so I saw AJ hand him a little portfolio. It was very professional, you know, all of his resume and all that stuff. I think a little DVD was in there. And so, you know, he was working the crowd and working his angles and trying to be taken seriously as hey, hire me. I really want to do this. So Cauliflower Alley Club is a great place to become a member and rub elbows with. You never know who's going to show up each year. But they're all in the wrestling industry, and it's a great place for indie people to, you know, be a part of the industry outside of working for Vince McMahon. It's a good place to just rub elbows, promote yourself. And there's always wrestling matches, so you can even sign up to wrestle. Well, so yeah. I saw those guys, and then the other would be, I bumped into TNA the other night. Somehow I was watching TV, and it flashed on, and it held my attention. And I watched it, and I saw Bubba Dudley on there. What's he called now? The Bully
Bully Ray.
Bully, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I thought it was really good. I watched about 20 minutes of it, but I thought the production value was really good. And it was, you know, the acting was good. It was like, wow, this is exciting. It's evolving into being good television again. Awesome. So I should probably watch a pay-per-view or something, but it's just hard to do it by yourself. Maybe if I was at a show or some autograph signing or watched it with a bunch of enthusiastic fans, it would be different. But I think I can find just about anything better to do right now than to watch television. You know, just for what? Just to comment on it? Who cares what I have to say anyway?
We do. And no, we're certainly happy that you were involved in Cauliflower Alley this year, because it helped bring you to our attention again and helped get all this set up. And look, it's been a pleasure for us to have a chat with you, to do it across 2 shows as well. The first person ever to talk so much that we couldn't contain it in one podcast. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's not news to anybody that knows me. Talk so much.
No, it's a pleasure, and it's been lovely to touch base with you and get your opinion on all sorts of things, and please keep in touch with us. I know you sometimes do go on the down low from wrestling for extended periods of time, but keep in touch with us. We'd love to keep in touch with what you're up to, and any way we can help pass out any information for you, we will be happy to do that.
Oh, good. And don't think of it as goodbye, because we'll be in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
I can't wait.
I love you, Ivory.
I love you guys, and I can't wait to hear what your opinion is about the Glow film.
That's
and
right.
I'm excited it's coming your way. And, you've definitely dropped me a line